This is our kitchen. It's small, we love it, but it is small, which just means that we have to use every bit of space as efficiently as we possibly can. And that's why in this video I'm going to see if I can try and make our kitchen just that little bit more spacious. This is the spice rack that I bought in Impulsively, and these are our herbs and spices. Today I'm going to see if I can design something to make the situation a bit better. So the first step in the design process for me is deciding what it is I need or want. And what I want and need here is a spice rack that takes up less countertop space and stores more herbs and spices than I currently am able to. And that's going to give me more space in my cupboard and easier access to my ingredients when I need them while I'm cooking. I won't be doing this particular project in 3D, I'll just be doing it with a pencil on a sketch pad with some basic measurements I've taken from what I have here. And with all of that in mind, I'm going to measure the space that I have available. Now, the farthest width I can go to is 23 inches. I'd like to know how high I can go as well. Now, there is this plug socket in the way, but we aren't really bothered about that. We don't use it very often, so we don't mind covering it up, although it would be nice to have access to it, maybe just by moving some of the spices when we do want it. So the maximum height we have is 19 inches. So what I know is that these spice pots are around 5 inches high, and with 19 inches to play with, that means I'm going to have 3 pots high, and these pots are around 2 inches wide, which means I should get around 10 pots wide, which should give me about 30 spice pots. That gives me the first steps towards doing it, and now what I would normally do is a simple sketch of what I want to build. So now I know roughly what space I have to work with, I can do a quick sketch of what I would like. Knowing the height of the spice pots is about 5 inches, and I want 3 shells, that should give me an overall height of about 15 inches. And I know that I want the width to be about 20 inches, because that's going to allow me around 10 pots along the width of the rack. I know I've got a lot of wiggle room in either direction to allow for the width of the material, so I don't see any real issues there. The only other thing I want to do is decide what kind of look I want for this piece. This is some chopping boards I made several years ago, and I like to stick with the design that I have there, with sharp, clean edges, and I'd like it to be made out of walnut as well, which I think looks quite nice with what we already have. And that's it, that's everything I'm going to do design-wise, and now I'm just going to see if I can go and work with the material and build it. So I have this wood left over from a previous project, and it's already planed and jointed, and it's nice and flat and square and everything else, so I am going to use it. But if you're the sort of person who enjoys seeing someone plane some wood, here you go. So what I've done is I've worked out that out of these 2 boards I can get 4 pieces for the full length. Now they are 22 inches, but minus the planer snipe that's already on here, that'll bring me down to around 18 inches, which is more than long enough. So 4 pieces out of these smaller ones, which will do the shells and the top and the bottom, and then out of 1 of these longer pieces I should be able to get both sides out of just half of it. A stop block set up, I am now going to see if I can cut the 2 sides to the right length. Using my crosscut sled, I'm going to see if I can cut the rabbits into the end of the side pieces. So now I have the exact rabbits / dados cut into the ends, I can measure the exact width from this end inwards on either side. And I'm going to do that now because then I have the exact measurements from the exact point that I need. Now I have my marks on either side, I can set up a stop block on my table saw to cut both outside edges of the dado, and then I hog out the middle piece, and that allows me to get a perfect friction fit. For the 4 shelf pieces, I'm going to cut the planer snipe off one end, and then I'm going to cut them to length, which will remove the snipe from the other. What I need to do is take these pieces of square stock and put a round tenon in either side, so then I can drill the mortise into either shelf rails along the side here. I'm going to use this jig set up with a piece of wood recessed into the blade, and that will allow the shoulders to each be cut at the exact same depth. I'll mark the ends, and I will cut the lengths of the tenons on the bandsaw as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my carving knife and I'm going to slowly trim off the edges of these tenons to make them nice and round. The next thing I'd like to do is work out where on the front of this rack I would like this rail to go. So what I've done is I've dry fitted 2 of the shelves, and I'm just going to have a little play around with the spice pot until I feel happy. I think that's about right there. So I'm going to measure upwards from that point, and that's going to be where I'm going to drill my mortises for these rails to go in. Okay, so I'm getting pretty close now. I've got my tenons and I've got my mortises, and they fit pretty snug. They're level with the front, and that's pretty much it. So all I've got left to do is to cut the tenons slightly shorter so they're going to fit flush onto the side rails. And once I've done that, we're going to see if we can sand the piece and then glue up. So now it's time for my favourite bit, the bit everybody loves. It's time for sanding! Woo! Whilst sanding, of course, I realised that I have messed up. I know, I'm very shocked too. So I have made a bit of a mistake, but it's okay. We can get past it. The side pieces, can you see what I did wrong there? That's right. I have put the mortises on the same side when they should have been mirrored. Now that's not a big problem because I'm going to have this on the back of the spice rack to stop the spice pots falling out the back. So that will cover up one of the holes, but I do need to re-drill those mortises. Okay, so I've been fiddling around with this for the last half an hour, and basically it comes down to this. The shelves are not deep enough to take these pots out without having to rotate them like this because of the back rail here. Now there is a very simple solution to this, and that is to make that back rail a lot thinner, about ½ an inch off the shelf, so that will still stop the pots falling off the back, but it allows you to lift the pot up and get clear from the back rail and pull the pot out. The problem with doing this very simple solution is my mistake from earlier, these holes here. So I'm going to have to fill those in a different way. I managed to find the cut-offs from the tenons that I did earlier on the bandsaw, and of course they do fit pretty snugly into my holes, so I've managed to glue those in. And of course it does mean one thing, I do have to look at the silver lining. I get to do more sanding! Yeah! Woo-hoo-hoo! Oh yes! It's coming towards the end of the day now, which means it's time to glue the piece together. And this is quite a fiddly piece to get glued together. So I'm starting with just the middle 2 shelves and the 3 front rails. And I'm going to see if I can get those all lined up and glued in position. Now that the 2 middle shelves are glued in, I'm going to come back and do the top and the bottom, which are of course attached with dados so they can just slot in. Once that's done, I'm going to clamp everything together and I'm going to make sure it's nice and square. I've finished the initial glue up and the next step for me is to glue on the back rails of the shells. As I was trimming down some of my wood, I was left with these 2 thin pieces of like veneer walnut, so I'm going to see if I can cut those down with a scalpel and actually stick them on the front edges just to cover up that joinery and make it look a little bit neater. After gluing on the veneer front, I'm going to glue the back rails, and I'm just going to hold those in with a couple of brads before clamping. After everything's glued up, I'm going to come back with just a little bit of sandpaper and with a card scraper just to make sure everything's nice and clean before applying finish. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video or you have any constructive feedback, please let me know in the comments.